First of all, on behalf of Brand Equity, I would like to really thank our panelists today for taking out time and joining us in a discussion that is very important as we build this MarTech culture, the technology culture, in the branding and marketing world. We are seeing a typical, a consumer behavior that has really moved us, right? Consumers today have this love-hate relationship with brands where they want a lot of customized products, customized offerings from brands. On the other hand, they are also worried about giving out their data to them. We have a mixed panel today. We have a leading auto company in the panel, along with some financial brands on the panel today. We'll understand from these stalwarts how they are really striking the balance between personalization and privacy. Whether we talk about this balance, whether this balance is at all a reality or a myth, right? So, I'll start with you here, right? In your company and especially in your category, right? What's that it's too much? How much data is too much, and where do you say that, hey, how do you say this to the consumer that, hey, I'm with you, I need your data to give you a better solution or a better product, and I can assure you that this data is very private.
Thank you, and a very nice afternoon to be here and with the stalwarts here. If I say this is the answer, then I will do a wrong thing. Right? Everybody has to figure out their own answers based on the category they are in, right? Now at Bajaj Capital, how we see is we have customers, 1/6 of India's tax-paying population has done a transaction with Bajaj Capital in their lifetime. So we have, that kind of being the lineage of 58 years now. So how we see customers is divided into India into multiple parts. So we have HNIs, we have, general public, and then there is a bottom of the pyramid, and everybody do some or the other transaction with us. Basis the need, want, and desire. This is the first thing that we try to strike of doing the communication to the user. What is their need, right? What is their desire and what is their want? Because when it comes to financial planning, the critical element is to know what not to do. Unlike a e-commerce, say a Myntra, people don't get up in the morning and think, I want to do a SIP or I want to buy an insurance today, right? We are in a category where we want you to delay your gratification so that you fulfill your responsibility later. So now I ask and always ask this question to our core teams, our founders. You tell us what is right to stop them from doing that instant gratification payment and making money versus helping them keep invested and making products which keep them there, right? If the philosophy is to help you be wealthy, not rich, because being rich is easy, but being wealthy is tough, right? So what we do is we build in fundamental understanding of the values that the company stands for, right? Basis that is where we say that we want to personalize. What the simple thing we add is permission-based personalization rather than push-based personalization, right? So the spray and pray method, right, which is actually also adopted in the digital world, right? We all have probably moved from a offline first, where every morning we used to think what we will do on TV today when we were marketers, to coming to a product side, when we every morning thinks is, will we be the trending story on YouTube, or will we be the trending to explode? So that's where the clear differentiation comes of deciding the balance that for us personalization means helping you live and fulfill the goal that you wanted to achieve and not make the mistake. I will give you a very simple example in 30 seconds. When you are redeeming your SIP, we will put a two-factor authentication. We will ask you to do an OTP verification on your mobile as well as your email. And when the email goes, a person is redeeming, we will send, to Mukesh, say is my customer, and I will send to Mukesh, you are redeeming a SIP which you planned for your daughter's education. Are you sure? That moment of personalization makes him feel that the brand cares about my long-term goal, versus on the first instance when I say, don't stop your sip, right? People who stop sips do not make wealth, right? So where that personalization comes is, I know about that the Mukesh is my customer, I know about he has a daughter, right? I also know he has a dream for his daughter education to a Harvard, right? Which will cost a 17 CR, for which he started a sip 5 years back. That personalization will bring a smile, versus the other personalization, right? You have not taken a accident policy, you are traveling to Jaipur tomorrow and your average speed is 100 kilometer per hour, right? I have all the data. That notification doesn't work. So that's how we strike the balance.
So ideally, it should be striking a balance between being caring and being creepy, right?
Yes.
Abhay, I'd come to you, and we discussed in the, backstage about the same idea of how you can be of meaningful content and meaningful messages to your consumers. The balance between being caring and being creepy. Where is the balance? Is it there? I mean, or is it a myth?
Just a question for the audience. How many guys here have their Wi-Fi and Bluetooth switched off? Okay. There's one guy, the two who are very, very privacy conscious. So, I mean, one of the good things you guys need to do is, when you step out of your comfort zones into an area like this, switch your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth off, because you're being tracked. Yeah, you don't want that to happen, right? So again, this whole intersection between being cool and being creepy, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it which is actually semantics. Yeah, you have an intersection which says privacy, and you have another circle which says personalization, and it is possible to do both. Yeah, the intersection set, but it is equally possible for you to be very, very privacy conscious and not care about personalization at all, and be completely all out on personalization and not care about that. And the big deal here is that there are meaningful efforts which are involved in actually being secure. Yeah, this meaningful effort will detract from the convenience which would have otherwise accrued to you. Yeah, but like all other things, like all of the guilty pleasures, like exercise is a hard thing to do. Yeah, but you are well off in terms of your health. Yeah, so it's the same with privacy. Sometimes you sacrifice a little bit of a convenience to just make sure you are more secure. Yeah, because your job currently depends on your social profile. The kind of pricing you get on your loans and insurance depends on the phone operating system you're using. That's true, huh, guys? So therefore, I mean, there is huge benefits to personalization, and as marketeers, all of us gleefully look at that piece, and you got to do the right things for the customer, and therefore there's this privacy thing. Yeah. Now, how do you go about it? How do you be cool without being creepy? Yeah. So first things first. Yeah. You have to be on the right side of the law. Unfortunately, in the country, it is not as tight as it, let's say, in the first world. Yeah. You have the GDPR regulations. You have the Google framework, you have the Apple framework now, and all of these frameworks are coming in, and these are self-imposed constraints by some of the more ethical players, saying we will do the right things for the customer and give customers a choice. Yeah, so that's thing number one, is be on the right side of the law. The second one is, do not invoke this fear of privacy. Yeah, you can end up being hugely overwhelming. Yeah. And therefore, how do you subtly present, the fact that otherwise, the worst thing you can do is you are being blocked, you are being traced, and have these red banners flashing, and that's very overwhelming. Yeah. So you can be a little subtle about that piece. Yeah. But I think the most important thing is you got to be very, very transparent about what you're collecting and for what purpose. Yeah. So I mean, a classic example, and this coming from a bank, kind of point of view, is if you are tracking a customer without the customer knowing it, yeah, it's equivalent to, that sales executive hiding behind his desk and creepily looking at you and pouncing on you the last moment saying, you have been doing these things, and therefore this is the best product for you. Yeah, you don't want to be that creepy salesman who's hiding behind the counter and just pouncing on you the last moment. Yeah. What you want to do is actually engage in a digital dialogue, and what that digital dialogue results is is in a living profile. Now let me just explain what I mean by this is depending on which stage of the journey that the customer is in, you can ask the appropriate question. Yeah, and tell the customer that this question is being asked so that it is more convenient for him to fill up. Yeah, and let me give you an example of one such thing. Is location tracking is very bad in some contexts. Yeah, and a classic one is, you're going around and suddenly you start, seeing these offers which are, next to, where you're driving by, and that seems, hugely impinging on privacy, as opposed to intelligent defaults in forms. Yeah, an intelligent default is, the form knows that you are actually filling in this from Gurgaon as opposed to Delhi. And therefore your PIN code validations, your city and state are automatically filled in, and it is shown as filled in. So therefore the customer knows, and the whole effort is that you don't have to spend so much of time filling in that form that you need to. Yeah? So intelligent defaults is a very, very smart thing to do. Another very smart thing to do is apologize for a bad experience. Now, apologizing for a bad experience means that you're tracking the experience to even figure out it was bad in the first place. Yeah. So an apology letter is a great thing to get. Okay, oh, these guys really care for me. Yeah. Another great example was this one. Do not stop your sip. You get the sense of, you're caring for me. So my sense is, a lot of data that you collect has to be explained as to why is it good for the customer, as opposed to being that creepy salesman. Yeah. And finally, I think another thing that, that people can do is have a brand personality and identity which says that our success depends on how much we know about you. Yeah. A classic example is Spotify, yeah, or Netflix. The entire experience is based on the fact that you get the right recommendations, and therefore you cannot get the right recommendations until something is being tracked. But that is known upfront. Yeah. Nobody ever uses Spotify without realizing that his playlists and his preferences are being tracked, and therefore you get the most accurate recommendations. Yeah. But that kind of stuff wouldn't work very well in a bank or a BFSI or an insurance set. Yeah. We know you have this disease because you've been going to this hospital, and therefore our pricing has shot up. Yeah. I mean, as opposed to a Netflix or a Spotify or actually even an Amazon, where your recommendations depend on your browsing history and the kind of stuff that you want. Yeah. So this very delicate balance, is a art and a science. Yeah. And the last thing I would say is, and again, I've seen a lot of IT vendors, outside, is do invest in a very, very good first-party data. In fact, the term now is zero-party data, not even first-party data, where the customers very willingly, knowingly, give data to you, which they knew will be used for you. So enough said. I mean, again, be cool, don't be creepy. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Abhay. So, interesting. Mukesh, I'll come to you here, right? So, after doing all the suggestions that has come from Abhay, right? Still, is there a gray area there, right? And how much gray is it really?
Sure. Thank you very much, Satyajit. I'm glad to be here. Both the gentlemen are absolutely right when it comes to the data privacy. We need to understand as a customers and as a service provider, both the lenses. We have to see, as a customer, we always wanted the best kind of offer, best kind of experience. And as a service provider, I always wanted to give you best experience and wanted to optimize on the cost. I wanted to give you the best products. Now, typically, if I need to give you a best product, then I need to know about you, right? A couple of examples we discussed here. One of the example is like the location tracking again, and we were discussing again backstage the same thing. Location is not always bad, right? And think of a situation you are trying to apply for a loan, and there is a condition where there has to be an address match has to happen. There is a field investigation happen because there is a KYC going to happen because somebody is lending money to you. Now, since they are lending money to you, they want to verify like you are the same customer, you reside here. So they have to verify your address. Now, they have got an address from your KYC doc, and now if you allow a location for say a minute or so for that particular action, we can track your current location, match it back to your KYC location, and then say, yes, the both things are getting matched. So remove the field investigation or field and do a field waiver, right? Now the process has been shortened by almost like say 2-3 days, and there is and since Please understand, when you go for a field investigation or a field verification, there'll be cost. There'll be a guy who come to your house and then eventually verify everything and comes back, right? There is nothing fancy or no technology involved there, right? So this cost has eventually will get transferred to you as a customer. So when at one side we expect the best consumer experience, and the other side we want to pay less. So again, that's why this dilemma, and that's why we are discussing here, like, what is the right balance when it comes to privacy and personalization. And that's why it cannot be black and white, it has to be gray. But when I say it has to be gray, the gray should not be hidden, right? So as a customer, or as a custodian of brands, or as a service provider, we must, when we collect the data, we must explain it to customer in clean terms, like why are we collecting this data, and how is it going to enhance the experience or add efficiency to your overall product quality. Second, we must, we must have a clean privacy policy, I believe, which is all the time accessible to the customers. So in case of doubt, they should always go back and refer to the privacy policy, like where this data is going to be used. They should have a clean understanding, like how my data is going to be used. And then they should be in control, right? When you are in control, you always feel empowered, right? So empower them, you give them a personalized option, you give them a option so that they can do, and they can select, or they can unsubscribe from the data, they can delete the data, so that they have their own control on their data, right? And when you give power to customer, when you build this kind of confidence, and then the customer starts believing in on you, and that's how you build a brand, and that's how you build a trust, right? Where you understand, like, customers' data is important, but customers' privacy is the most important factor, right? And when you deliver this, you as a brand, you always make sure, like, you have the right checks and balances in place, you have the right security measures in place, you have a right audit controls in place, and whenever you are sharing customer data, it's on customer request, where customer understand, like, I want to get this kind of behavior, or I want to get this kind of experience, hence my data is being shared. A typical example, you go to a shop, again we are talking about shopping here, you go to a shop, you go to an old school kind of shop where there is a bar or a counter there, and you are not allowed to get into the shop, and you ask for certain things, like a packet of a bread. Then you always wonder, like, the other guy who is the shopkeeper will try to maximize his revenue and will give you something which is not the educate, or which is not the best product for you, the money you are paying, right? Versus a typical mart where you walk in and you have shelves, you can pick whatever you want from there. That's a choice you are giving to the customer, right? And once you give, and look, nowadays what's happening, like, you go to a shelf, the digitized shelf, they'll automatically see, or they'll automatically add it to your cart, right? That's again a second level of experience. So it depends on customer, and this entire ecosystem is evolving, right? We were all trying to understand what is the right limit, how much gray is gray, like we discussed, like how much gray is gray, and that's what we are trying to establish. There is no clean answer, in my honest opinion. There is no clean answer around it. Government of India is trying to do a lot of, regulatory bodies are trying to do a lot of things, big enterprises are trying to do a lot of things, and we are evolving, we are learning it, right? And yeah, so I believe this will eventually, 3-4 years down the line, this will be a much better, this would be in a much better situation when it comes to the data privacy policies and data security point of view.
As we go along, right, the shades of gray should become lighter, and that's what consumers would be happy about. Puneet, coming to you, right? We heard three brands from the BFSI sector talk about their needs of why they need to know the data, right? What's the threshold for you? I mean, what are the data sets that you really need to serve your consumer well, and what is too much for you in your category, in your brand?
Thank you, Satyajit. First of all, thank you to ET and all the sponsors. I think, like Mukesh mentioned, this is an evolving space, and and we need these forums to actually bring this very, very relevant and important subject to these forums. See, in my opinion, and this is a personal opinion, not from brand perspective, when we started studying, or when we were students, we were always told this one thing that strategy is the most used and most abused word in marketing or in general business terms. I think that word has been replaced now by personalization and retargeting. The dime a dozen excuses why we do this and how we are trying to do it better, well, and all that stuff. But today when you look at this space, as brands, we have to draw a line. If a customer has made a mistake of clicking on your digital ad, that does not give you the right to start hounding that customer and say, okay, why have you not made a decision in favor of my brand, right? That guy has already bought the product and is on his way to a different country, and you are still sending the same ad to this guy saying that please buy, right? So do customers want personalization? Oh yes, of course. I think there are numerous studies that have been done as recent as a BCG Google study last year, which actually spoke to customers across the world, trying to understand, do they need personalization? And more than 70% customers said, yes, we need personalization. But we have our reservations in terms of sharing data, right? Now, when do customers want to share data? So you have to be very clear in terms of the brand that you are representing when you're going and asking for data to the customer. Customer is ready to part with personal data only when one or two things are happening. Either it is helping improve customers' experience, and some of my fellow panel members talked about it, or if it is helping the customer make the decision in a better way, right? And as long as you keep that as your guiding principle, everything else, I know there is still gray, but it can be much more clear. And when you go and ask your customer for data, as long as you are clear on this aspect, that how it is going to help the customer, and I think one of the issues we have, and based on a lot of discussions I've had with my peer group, we are looking at this whole problem from business point of view. How do I monetize data? It's not your data to be monetized. It is your customer's data. Is your customer okay to let you monetize that data? I don't know, you have to ask, right? Nobody's asking, by the way. And there are numerous examples for that. So at the end of the day, what are you doing with that data? What is the promise you are making as a brand to your customer that this is what I'm going to do with my data? And if your processes, your systems, and your people are not aligned with that, you should not ask for data. You should not take any customer data. I know that's a very extreme view, but if you're not capable of handling a customer's data, you should not take it. Now, I'll give you two extreme examples, which hopefully will make this point clear. See, one from BFSI. So I used 2 credit cards. These are both personal examples. I used 2 credit cards. So technically, one of these are my banking partner also. They technically have all the data, all my financial data, my personal data. Now they have 2 different approaches here. One bank has been trying to sell me insurance, but they never put me through to the partner or the other department. They will call me, they'll ask, sir, this is a product we are offering to a certain clientele. Are you interested? I say, okay, interested. I'll get the call back from the same person and try to explain the product. Sir, are you okay to be contacted by my insurance person? I say, no, not yet. 3 months down the line. I'll get a call 3 months down the line. But I never get a call from the other department. That's like really, really good governance. As compared to another brand, with whom, by the way, I do a lot more business because my salary account is with them. They have assigned a wealth manager and all that stuff. And they have given my data to God knows how many insurance companies, and I get these calls, okay, because you are the customer of this and this bank, so you are given this opportunity. Anyway, so that's the difference. But like I said, it is your brand image. It is the brand that you're trying to protect. So you have to be very conscious of that and stay in the guide rails that you as a business define.
Abhay, I'll come to you here, right, and try to understand, for consumers, how can we as brands make it more simpler for them to share their data that is needed for a business and that is needed for creating better experiences for the consumers, right? How can you make it more simpler and make them more reliable on on the brand's perspective?
Okay. See, good experience is actually three things, and there are three concurrent things. The first one is a good experience is an easy experience. Yeah, you should not be loading your cognitive abilities. Yeah. The second one is that it should be effective. That you started on doing something, it should get done. Yeah. And the third one is emotion, which is you should feel good about having done it. Whether you be in a more responsible thing or you splurging on a guilty pleasure, you feel good about it. So the key thing is all of these three have to be satisfied in a good experience. Yeah. Now, if you are also engaging in a conversation, but conversation is necessarily two-way. That you ask for something, you explain why you need it, and the customer actually willingly, with full knowledge of the consequences of it, gives it. So that builds up what is called a living profile. Yeah. So I think I'm coming back to this, which is building up the living profile for that relevant part of the journey is the most important thing that every large enterprise actually has to do now. Yeah. The second thing that you have to do is train the customers as to why not giving these things unsolicited, is a good thing for the customer. And also train your own staff to do that you need this data and you can use this data only when you are doing these things. And let me give you an example. Details of your financial transactions is a very useful thing for a customer service person, where you can immediately know which transaction is actually resulting in the query or the complaint that is coming through. So the customer service guy actually has a full view of all the transactions. Yeah? But he does not need to know the demographics really. Yeah? Does not need to know even the location, unless it's very, very important. Yeah? As opposed to a salesperson, all that the salesperson needs to know is that this is the sentiment that this customer has in engaging with the bank. This is the current portfolio of products he has, and these are the products that he does not avail of. Yeah. So differential access to data, depending on the context and the role, is also a very, very important thing to do. So, getting a good experience, and whether it's good UX or actually just putting things in a very, very easy to understand, kind of a set is one of the things that can be done. The second one is educate the customer, and more importantly, educate your own staff. There has to be awesomely great governance which is in place, that every data is actually secured, protected, and actually audited for correct usage. And there are penalties for actually using it wrongly. Yeah. So I think if these two are done well, they will really solve a lot of problems. The third thing, and this is slightly technically more evolved, is this whole concept of differential privacy. Yeah. And I know in marketing there's a holy grail, N is to 1, segment of 1, and we need to know everything about this customer to sell him well. But guess what? Actually, what is more important is the cohort. People like you do things like this. Yeah. Now, suddenly what happens is there's a great degree of comfort that comes because suddenly you realize that the enterprise actually placed you in a cohort. So nobody is really scrutinizing you for your intimate details. Yeah. People who buy this also buy that. Is a great example of actually collating it in a cohort. Another great example is usage of emojis in your text messages. Yeah. When you get the emoji set, what Apple does is, it has slotted you into a cohort and saying these are the more frequently used emojis. Those are not the emojis you have used all the while. So suddenly you feel that you are safer as you are in a group. And this requires a lot of technology, because you also have to introduce random variables in your population so that you can't trace it back to the relevant individual. Yeah. But this is a more evolved kind of a thing, which is use differential privacy wherever possible. Yeah. Lots of companies do it very well. People like you buy things like this. This is the fastest route. Now, the fastest route implicitly means that you're being tracked, right? But it also means that you are part of the cohort, you're part of the population which is actually driving this way, and therefore will reach this place faster. Yeah. So that is another thing that can be done. Yeah. So those are the three things that you need to do.
Thanks, Abhay. Mukesh, I really want to come to you here and understand. So there is a term that has been, doing the rounds for quite some time now. It's like privacy by design, right? As a brand, right, where do you see really integrating privacy by design? Is it in your, as Abhay mentioned, is it in your strategizing, how you talk to the consumer, educating the consumer. What is privacy by design?
Well, privacy by design is a concept or a principle. Look, the fundamental of any privacy related topics are pretty simple. The fundamental is you have to own the promises which you have done to the customer, and customer is the custodian, eventual custodian of that data. You are just temporarily holding that data while you offer something to him. So that's the fundamental principle. Now around it, whenever you design any policy, be it is your privacy policy or a data security policy or a data share policy or a data access policy, will eventually be around the same principle. Now, typically, as Abhay also mentioned about the example of being in cohort, or we can say like anonymizing the data and using that data to generate insights for customer is again a great strategy, right? I was just thinking, right, since we are talking about this topic, think of it like everybody who is attending this panel or event have registered themselves. The organizer have this data. Now, technically, organizer can share this data with all the IT vendors or all the service providers are there.
We don't do that, but yeah.
I know. That's where I'm saying that's a line. But so nobody would want to get call from all the IT or all the product companies here. But they would like to know about the next MarTech event, right? That's the gray line, right? They are registered and they want a relevant communication back. But they don't want unwelcoming messages from all these vendors or getting a call for these kind of stuff. So that's a line where we need to draw whenever we write a privacy policy or whenever we design our system around the privacy. As I said, anonymizing data is critical. Giving a personalized offer is also something critical for a customer point of view, because you are giving him a curated offers which he might not get otherwise. So that's very important, and you trying to help customer. While you are helping the customer, you need to have a right set, or you need to have an adequate policy in-house where you ensure the data you have collected is being used for the purpose you have collected it for. And you have right encryption algorithms in place, and you have the right systems in place. And you have a right, as my fellow panelist mentioned, you have a right set of audits in place. And that's why you typically see there are jazz about ISO certification, ISMS certification, certain certification. A lot of people know here, right, about this certification. I'll just give you a detail. So RBI mandates data localization. What does that mean is your data, whatever data in BFSI you collect, has to reside in India. So you can't, so as an org, you can have a multiple vendors or a technology service providers. But by regulation, you can't share this data. This data cannot traverse outside of India. It's a wonderful regulation, don't you think? Similarly, there are regulations, for example, account aggregator ecosystem, which is again helping the customer. And this ecosystem has evolved because everybody has seen and understood the part of a problem and they try to solve it, but not restricting the customer experience, right? What is the best way to protect this? Like, do not ask data and let customer hustle. Right? There are a lot of products you come for a personal loan, and I will not ask any question to you, and I'll ask you to search from 100 options, right? But you are not adding value to the customer. Rather, I would give you a best insight or a curated offer or a personalized offer for you. That's where the customer is happy, right? So there are regulation around these. There are policy implementer around that who ensure like your data is not getting misused. Of course, as I said, there are times when people have done over marketing to customers and have resulted into a bad customer experience, but that is what we need to minimize.
In the want of time, I think we are just a few minutes away from the close. I really want to take some audience question, but before that, I'd really want to come to my panelists here, and in bullet points, right? We are discussing striking the balance, right? So in bullet points, if you can just say, and I'll start with Abhinay here, so if you can just help our audience understand what is this that is needed to strike the balance. Bullet points, your answer.
First and foremost, we have to agree that the opposite of every great truth is another great truth, right? And that's the truth of life.
Beautiful,
right?
Yeah.
And what we have done of building the digital world is we have copied the activities of an offline world. So they were TV, we thought of ad, distribute it to hundreds of people, and we believe that out of them, if 10% come and buy this product, that is fine. The same philosophy is actually followed into the digital world. We spread all the ads around. We figured out a better way. There it was OTS, opportunities to see, or GMV, what a traditional marketer will tell you, total viewership, right? In our case, we have seen clicks. Now is actually the time when we have right set of data of customer who allows us to give him insightful information to act for their betterment, right? The first point is that, as a nuggets, I believe, is we should not make decision for the customer. We should give him options for him to make a better decision, right?
Great.
That is the first. The second point that we need to figure out as an industry also, the world is not just personalization or privacy. The world is also discovery. All the joys of life are in discovery, and the moment you become a cohort, you can never discover. You know, your set of reels as a cohort is same as what all probably 4 of us will be getting as reel suggestion, because we fall in a single cohort. So there is no discovery. Let your customer discover as a range. And third thing that I believe, really, if there are IT people here who can actually help us make, I want to force in all the communication that my company has done, all the reach that has happened. I am fine if I have to give a phone to my relationship manager and record every conversation he is having, because he is doing it on my behalf as a company in this. Get it there and tell me a single score rather than a net promoter score, which all of us track and tell to the investor or the community. Give me a single score, how many difference of deviation we did from our value system when we did this communication, right? That is where the change will start coming. And the last point I will take, I'm taking 30 seconds, not 10 seconds. Sir, you really need Bajaj Capital, right? Why? Because Bajaj Capital is more than a bank. Why we are more than a bank? Because I won't sell you my bank insurance. I will tell you these are 4 bank insurance. Let you decide what is right for you, right? And we will have a conversation. Thank you.
Puneet, yeah, I should come next to you, and yeah. So obviously in your bullet points, what are the things that we really need to take care of to strike the balance, and if you would want to really suggest a win here, yeah.
No. See, I think really some very good points from the panelists, and I broadly I agree with most of them. See, I just want to add a little bit to what Mukesh mentioned on the privacy by design subject. Look, it's a mindset change. Today, when we are looking at bringing a new solution to the market, go-to-market strategy, we are either thinking from business point of view, or we are thinking from the point of view of how I'm going to better my competition, right? But once you start looking at it from the customer's point of view, the whole perspective changes. And again, like I said, numerous studies have been done, research has been done. It is good for the brand. It is good business to think customer first, think about customers' priorities. That's what my panelists also talked about. And one of the fundamental principles of privacy by design, it has 7 principles, and one of the key principles is don't compromise on customer experience, don't compromise on functionality. There is always another way to do it. There is a better way to do it. Look for better way to do it. Don't be lazy about it. After all, this is a communication that you're having with your customer. It's a dialogue you're having with a customer who is paying for your salary or your shares or whatever you're holding. So don't be lazy about it. There is always a solution which is better, which is good for your customer, while it is good for your business, maybe better for your business.
Thank you panelists for joining us today and helping us and our audience really understand what's that point that really needs to, a brand needs to take care of while striking the balance. On that note, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks.